like fire. Nemo's got the mic dressed in satire. Andrew in the booth, spinning the wheel. Cameras rolling, it's all surreal. Who's the guest today? Who's the guest today? Record spinning, always winning. Right, 'cause Nemo questions pinning. Andrew calls the shot, don't miss the frame. Hobby hooligan, what's your name?
Hey, Hobby Hooligans, don't adjust that set, and welcome to Ashtabula Hobby Talk. I am Nemo, KEPBL, amateur radio enthusiast and president of Amigos Radio Club, Ashtabula. And you might notice some little bit different formatting today on our video. That's okay. We're bringing some folks in. Rikus couldn't show up to the studio tonight. We have had a major snowstorm this evening, so he's coming to us with our special guest, Spider from Crescendo Games. Let's bring those guys in here.
Hello.
All right. So normally we'd pass the mic over to Rikus now, and he says hello. So, you don't look as good as you do in studio, man.
No, I'm a little snowed in. It's kind of different. I miss being at the studio, but I'm Rikus, co-host of Ashtabula Hobby Talk, owner of Captain's Comics, and welcome to another episode of Ashtabula Hobby Talk, where some of us are snowed in.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, I was flipping coins before I came down here. Hey, I don't know exactly where you're at there, Spider, but hopefully the snowstorm isn't getting you too bad.
Oklahoma. There's no snow here at all. It's actually a rather, if it wasn't for the fact that, my poor northern beauty of a wife is missing snow like crazy, I'd be actually pretty content. But she's a Wisconsin girl and she's in Oklahoma.
Well, that's all right. I understand that. I do like snow. So, you run Crescendo Games and you're a game developer. So, tell us a little bit about yourself on that end.
Still weird to have people call me that. Anyway, so I am the designer, founder, writer, etc. of Crescendo Games. I started the project coming up on 5 years, about 5 years ago. I wanted to make a game that emulated the feel and atmosphere of Gene Wolfe's works, which is, if you've ever read Neil Gaiman, and if you make that like about 1,000 times more mysterious and harder to deal with, just on a basic level, that's kind of Gene Wolfe, kind of. It's kind of like a, lowbrow pitch. So I've been developing the game for a while, and the game is more or less done now. I'm just essentially, I've got it out in Ashcan form, so that way the text can get polished up, and then try and figure out the next step after that. This is much more of a shoestring, I will figure it out when I get there sort of an enterprise than I think people would be comfortable with having me admit, but here we are.
Sometimes that's the best way to go, man. So tell us a little bit, give us an origin story there. I actually had seen you on my other friend's podcast, John with Jack, and you were talking a little bit about your origin story. So share with our guests here, our viewers, how you got started into tabletop role playing.
You want that story, huh? It is fun. In retrospect. So at 15, I decided I wanted to play D&D, and my dad told me I couldn't. And I decided that I was going to do it anyway. So I walked in blind to a group and found out it was a bunch of theistic Satanists.
All right.
Who were using the game to explore being evil in a way that wouldn't get them in trouble. This is not subtext. This is not me guessing. This is what they said. This is, it's a bunch of high schoolers sitting around deciding that they're going to be the worst people possible in a setting where they're not going to go to jail. It sucked.
Interesting. Yeah.
It sucked. It was terrible.
Well, what a horrible first impression.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because like I'd been reading the books, and the books didn't read like what was going. Like it was one of those things where it's like this isn't right. This doesn't gel.
You know, I have a couple anecdotes along those lines because I knew somebody who was uh very very far down the schizophrenic line, and this person wanted us to use the spells out of the D&D books, out of the player's handbooks, to go summons a dragon in a fire and film it, have people dressed in armor to fight the dragon. I'm like, now this person was certifiably crazy and had been hunted down on at least one occasion by men with white coats. But yeah, definitely there's people out there like that.
Wow, just that wasn't on my bingo card. Now that
during the early 90s, D&D had like a bad rap because of instances like this. And I have a friend right now who's more Christian based, and his kids are coming to me, and they want to know about D&D because I play my whole life.
Sure, yeah.
And they're not allowed to play because his father hears stories like this, and it still has that stigmata to it. And there's no way to cleaning that up. I mean, I don't know how to fix that part of it and explain that to him.
Right. Give me 1 second. My daughter just wandered up here. I apologize. 1 second.
No, you're fine.
The stairs are steep. You shouldn't go down by yourself yet. Sorry. All of a sudden, I thought I'd close the gate. I turn around and she's right there. I'm like, oh, I should get you downstairs. Anyway, yeah, no, I don't. It's a really sticky thing because like you've got the kid living in the sewer who, if I remember correctly, the FBI agent decided to lie and say it was D&D as opposed to mental illness. Then you've got the satanic panics, and you've got all this stuff that is either circumstantial or it's not true, or it's people misusing the thing so badly that you can't like I'm sorry that he went and he did this fundamentally wrong thing and just happened to mention the word D&D while he did it. Like,
it happens.
Sorry,
like
I don't
yeah.
know what to tell you.
Yeah, you know,
And there's also that movie that Tom Hanks was in the mid 90s too. I can't remember the name of that.
And the Jack Chick tract. Oh, I had so many well-meaning Pentecostals give me the Jack Chick tract. Ugh.
Yeah. And, you know, I think some of it too is, you know, you try and explain to people, no, this is fantasy. None of it's real. It's like reading a fiction book, but you're playing it out.
Sure.
Instead of just reading it. And then they go, oh, it's fantasy. But then they start flipping through it, or they start looking at it and they go, oh, but look here in the mountain, like, cause I came from second edition. That's when I started. Well, really, I started with like AD&D, Keep on the Borderlands, all that stuff.
Sure.
The red box set. But you know, by the time people were asking me about it and I was introducing it to people, and I'm like, well, here's the monster manual. They're like, oh, look, there's Odin and there's Freya and there's blah blah blah. You know, like in the books as adversaries or protagonists or whatever. And they're like, oh, look, see, it is real. I'm like, no, those. And if you look at what those write-ups are, even those don't have anything to do with the actual people or the actual legends and mythos that are behind those pantheons. So that makes it even harder to explain it to people sometimes.
Definitely not. No, I got it. It was actually kind of funny because like, especially because at the time, because I showed my dad the books. My dad's flipping through the books. He's like, what the heck is this? I'm like, I had again bumped into theistic Satanists just by sheer dumb luck. Like one of those, like, how do you do this?
You rolled a 2.
My response was, nothing in this book feels like what I ran into over there. Sorry, it just doesn't. Like,
That's what happens. That's what happens when you roll a 2 on your random encounter list.
One heck of a guy. I mean, like, the other weird thing about that town was that later on I realized that, like, the small group of people I ran into were actually part of a larger cult in the town, like a real honest to God Satanistic cult. And they were just all hanging out in this small town. And it was like,
Wow.
What? This is like something out of a bad, like, 70s movie or something. Like, what are you guys doing here? I mean, just all sorts of crazy. Like, yeah, my junior year of high school was really, really, really weird. Just bumping into all these people. I'm like, you're all part of the same cult. There's a cult for Satan in a 5,000 person town. I figure some of them are nerds. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, so obviously you progressed past that scene. Then you said you were trying to get your dad to play a little bit. Has he started to kind of open up to that?
Actually, about I'd say about 10, 15, no, not 10, 15 years ago, he apologized because he saw the positive impact that it was having on my life. He saw that, I wasn't doing anything bad with it, and he got to look into it a little bit more. He saw there were more games than just D&D, which, yeah, he finally got a bit better of a picture, and he actually apologized, which is something that really meant a lot to me, that he did that. And then when I started designing Crescendo, he was actually very proud of it, because I was trying to tell him about, the things I was trying to put into the game and what I wanted the game to do. And he's like, well, this is just good. Go do this thing. This is a good thing to do. Which meant a great deal. He was going to actually edit the game, and then some health problems came up, and then it was like, okay, step back and go deal with that stuff. I'll go figure it out from here. But he was actually looking through initial drafts of the game, and he was helping me develop it. He was helping me develop the text before his health problems came up.
That's important to have a good support system.
Boy, you ain't kidding.
Anytime you're doing a new enterprise.
Anyway, yeah. No, I mean, like, if it wasn't for my Discord channel, I would not be here. I just wouldn't. I cold invited about 50 people. Actually cold invited them. And they all showed up, and they all saw, because especially in 2021, when I first started this whole thing out, I was a crap writer. I was so bad. I was terrible. And they a couple of people left, but then more, you know how it goes. There's the traffic in and out. And the people that stayed have helped me sharpen things up. They've talked me down from some extremely bad ideas. They've talked me down from quitting 1 or 2 times. They've helped me play test the game. I mean, just without the people in that community, I just wouldn't be here doing this right now. It would be impossible.
So what were some of the hurdles? I guess, obviously it seems like introduction to the other systems. Maybe, I know Rikus has got a similar situation to what you had gone through with that. So it sounds like introduction to exposure to other game systems was a big part of getting over that hurdle for you, so like Champions or.
The audio just cut out there. Could you, say that again? I don't know what happened there.
That's fine. It sounds like to get over that hurdle with your dad, you exposed him to other game systems. You showed him other other scenarios.
Oh yeah.
Right. And that.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, after fourth edition, I did fourth edition D&D. And after that, I jumped into the indie scene. So I was bringing home things like Burning Wheel, Dogs in the Vineyard, which my dad really, really, really liked. My dad loved Dogs in the Vineyard. I almost got him to play it, like one of those like, oh wow, let's go play this, and and then life happens, and then it never happens. But like he was looking, it's like, wow, this is cool. Um, so stuff like that. I even showed him. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of My Life with Master.
Nope, that's one I haven't heard.
No.
It's a twisted little game. It's a twisted little thing. It's a you are playing Igor in Frankenstein. So
Awesome.
like the GM makes you a Frankenstein, a Dr. Frankenstein, and you play Igor, and all the other players are playing an Igor, and the game is about you trying to get to the point of overthrowing the master. And it is a rough game. Like I mean, you read it and you're like, wait a minute, wait. Did you just say you didn't write what I think you just wrote? There's a lot of stuff like that. And so like he read that and he thought that was really, really, really cool because it's a very emotionally raw game and it goes places. And it's just this tiny little thing. And he really liked that. So I was showing him stuff because I was finding stuff and I was really liking it. And he started to warm up to it because he saw how much variety there actually was in the scene. And he was really happy with that.
Yeah, Rikus, it sounds like maybe that's
Now I can't hear him at all. What just happened?
Uh-oh. What happened? Hold on, something happened
Yeah,
here.
I
There we
don't have
go.
his audio either.
There.
How about
I
now?
heard you there.
You got me? All right. We must have had something with the connection here. Sorry about that, guys. Rikus, it sounds like maybe one of the steps you need to make with this guy's dad is maybe just show him some of the other game systems. Maybe show him the Marvel system. Show him Toon.
Oh yeah.
Toon is a great game system. Just don't show him Cult or Little Fears, and you'll probably be good.
Well, I think part of it comes down to Christians wanting to. If I'm going to be blunt, Christians usually mistake kindness and niceness, and they mistake them in very, very, very to very shocking degrees. I say that as a Christian, so like this isn't me being like, oh, but like I feel a lot of the time that that people will look at something and they'll say it's not nice, and then they will make the mistake of thinking, well, it can't be kind. Surgery isn't nice. Working out isn't nice. I mean, it can be fun, but it's not nice. It's uncomfortable. And so a lot of the time, we're also not wanting to dump concepts into our kids' heads that we don't know what to do with. I mean, going through that with my boys right now. They're trying to figure things out, and it's like I don't know how do you handle this?
With role-playing games. I mean, honestly, that
Right?
really
can you
did.
hear him? Because I can't hear him now.
Why is it doing it again? I don't know why it did it again. I'm going to leave the screen looking like this, though. But like role-playing games are great for that, though, what you're saying with your kids, because you can give the scenario in a softer way than it would be in real life, and then they can work through that. And that actually, for me, probably for the first 5 years of gaming was really helpful for me in that aspect.
It lets you work through things.
Yes.
And it lets you do it in a way that isn't going to get someone else hurt. Normally, can't speak for LARPing. It it lets you confront things that you normally couldn't, and it lets you do that without horrifying consequences.
It helps you explore options and relate to the outside world, and it's just it builds up confidence too.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a lot of important people like doctors and lawyers and really intelligent and people that built businesses like corporates and stuff like that. They played D&D as a young kid, and that was a fundamental building block for their development.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely there's something about doing it's still real to you. Like it's not real, but it's happening in your head and you're having to imagine it, you're having to think through it. And the brain on some level doesn't distinguish. So you can work through you can go and do things. I mean, like I remember the first time I ever ran a I bought the Power Rangers role playing game, which is from Renegade. And I tried it with my kids because I thought they'd like it. And the first time I introduced a monster, I had to stop the session because my second born about started screaming because he could imagine it in his head. And he was like, wait, this thing's in front of me? I'm like, well, I mean, in the game world, yes. Hold up. Like, it's not actually, but I mean, that wasn't, that was not my most intelligent moment as a dad. We'll just put it that way.
Figurines, maps, table, uh, tactical table layouts. I think that helps bridge that gap a little bit.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, he's grown since then, and he's been able to handle things differently. But I mean, just that first moment of describing the monster, and I, I was GMing for 20 years by the time, but for almost 20 years by the time so I described a really good monster. I put my oomph into it, and I'm just looking. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh no, wait a minute. And he's just giving me this look like this is the scariest thing I've ever heard of. I'm like, oh no, no. Back up. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But he's older now,
I
and he's
can't
able.
wait to hear I can't wait to hear his origin story when he was younger.
I don't know
My
if he'll
dad
remember.
scared me.
Yeah.
There was these
My dad
monsters
did
all
this to
around me. It
me.
was horrible.
It's awful. Dropped a monster on us. I could see it.
I could smell its breath.
It's actually not too far off from the description I gave. Actually, that's really the. I mean, I was proud of this monster description. It was some silly it was this monster with it was a snake creature with an apple on its head. And I looked at this thing. I thought, this is the silliest thing I've ever seen. I'm going to make this the stuff of nightmares because, why not? And the reason why not is because young children don't deal with having the stuff of nightmares described to them very well.
Yeah, I can understand where that would come from. Absolutely. Uh, a little more go lucky on the scenarios there.
Yeah, it didn't. Oh well. I mean, he plays now. I mean, he's actually played. They've both played a number of games. They've actually got a pretty good spread under their belt. At this point, my eldest is playing. He plays a lot of Sentinels, the Sentinel comic RPG, which is
Okay.
which is kind of this crunchy superheroes sort of a thing. And whenever he runs games, and he does it in that system. He's read it cover to cover multiple times, and that's his baby. That's what he does. Um, but yeah, no, it's interesting because it lets them kind of play out. Um, it lets them tell stories with each other, and it lets them be surprised by what they're doing. I haven't tried Crescendo on them yet because that's a very journal intensive game, and you know, I already ruined it with the first description of the monster. Let's not go into heavy psychological depths when from their
So
dad. Let's not do that.
what kind of mechanics are in Shendo?
So Crescendo is a fiction first journaling game. So the rules are, the basic rule is simple. What you describe happens. So unless the GM or the Weaver says otherwise, like if you say it, that's it. Like the GM. I mean, I call him the Weaver, and you'll figure out why in a minute. But short of doing something that's like, hurtful to someone else at the table or something just patently absurd, if you say it, it happens. No one can and there's no takebacks. So if you say it, boom, nope, that's it. The Weaver then judges whether or not the action is successful. That's it. He just goes, it either works, it doesn't work, or it could work, but let's make a deal because it's not a clean win. So you got to give things up to be able to get this win. So those are like the three ways to respond. If the player doesn't like what someone else at the table has said, that's when they pick up the dice, and it's called defying, where they go, no, I don't like what you just said. I defy you. And then they pick up the dice, and there's rules for, adjudicating that. And then they roll against each other. And then the winner gets what they want, and the loser doesn't. So that's kind of the basic flow of the game. It's very smooth. People pay attention to what they're doing if you tell them no takebacks.
Yeah. We I don't understand the takebacks.
It's actually much harder than it sounds. Like, it sounds easy until you say something and go, oh wait, no.
So the something isn't just like drawing a bow and shooting somebody in the head. It could be jumping off a scaffolding and landing in a glass of Faygo.
Right. I mean, if the Weaver tells them, hey, it's raining out, and if they go, well, I'm going to go running up that wall without thinking about it, Weaver goes, no, you don't. The wall's wet. You fall on your butt. Like, I told you the wall was wet. Like I told you there was heavy rainfall, and then you tried to pull this. No, that doesn't work. And then the player can't go, oh, well, then let me change it. No. You were told, acknowledge, action. So if you acknowledge
Gotcha.
that you understood it, and if you go do it, that's, you were told. So it makes for a very, people get curiously reckless after that point. Like, you would think it would make them more cautious, and it does. But once they realize that what they say can't be, it takes a deliberate action from someone else to oppose them, they go, wait a minute, all I have to do is just pay attention. And then they start doing it. And it creates some really interesting knock-ons. The last part of the system is a journaling mechanic. So when I say journal, here's the notebook that I just filled up. It's falling apart. God rest its soul. During the game, you do something called hitting the books, where everybody opens up the journal to a random passage to their journal, closes their eyes, puts their finger down, they read it out loud. And then the Weaver interprets all of the journal entries into a plot twist or a fact about the world. Whatever piece of information he doesn't want to come up with right now, he can just ask them to hit the books. And then everybody writes their interpretation back down into their journal. Their interpretation of what the Weaver said.
That's interesting.
It
So that's how the storyline in the
think
game progresses then is so they keep a journal, and then the game weaver takes that journal, pieces of that journal, and uses that to progress the storyline of the game.
Right. I mean, everybody has a journal, including the Weaver. He's got his own stuff that he's writing down. So everybody's got these like little journals written from scattered elements of what's going on in the story, because you're not writing down even the same things all the time. And even if you are, you're not writing them down the same way. So there's this, like, take an old school table, like a wandering monster table, and put it on steroids. It's a gigantic multi-piece random table that your players maintain for you.
That's pretty cool.
I will not pretend that I did that on purpose. I was just like, I didn't, because I was
But
so.
it sounds like
I have such a terrible short-term memory. I have a really, really bad short-term memory, and I was getting really, really sick of me being the only person who had to write things down as the GM. I was getting sick of it. I was like, well, I want everybody at the table to be writing stuff down. I'm like, well, I want everyone to write it down. They have to have a reason to write it down. That means it needs to loop into gameplay. And that's where the whole bibliomancy from Virgil sort of a thing came up. Like, oh, wait a minute, let's incentivize writing things down so that way I don't have to be the only one writing them down. It wasn't a very deep thought. It was just like, I'm so sick of this.
Well, no, that's great though, because like it sounds like for the most part the resolutions of conflict, whatever it is, that's pretty rules light. So there's not a lot to it. So that leaves you open to developing in the story with the journals, and I actually really like that concept.
Thank you. Use it. Go for it.
Yeah.
It's definitely unique.
Thank you.
I can't think of a game system that does that.
I actually had to go almost completely offline for the first year that I was developing Crescendo, because I was coming up with ideas like that all the time. And people were like, why would you do this? Who cares? I'm like, okay, no one else is seeing. I'm just going radio dark for a little while, and I'm just gonna work on this. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Cool, but I can't, like, it was really, really weird at the beginning, because people were just like, what the heck what are you talking about? I'm like, I just don't want to write things. I don't want to be the only one writing things down. That's all.
Well, and then to use that to progress storyline, that's awesome. Because
thank you.
And you can kind of do that at any time during the game. Just be like, okay, we're at a lull, so everybody break out your journals and let's pick what we're doing, and it keeps them involved directly and gives you like some good idea where the party wants to go and how they want to develop. So,
oh yeah, I mean, like, and then you've got like people who program the journals, because they figure out that like word choice means something, and that they kind of learn how to manipulate their weaver, because they're like, the following buzzwords really piss him off. And then they start programming their journal so that way the words come up. So that way the weaver continues to be unhinged throughout the session. So that way wilder things will happen. There's basically two kinds of people who play Crescendo. There are people who play it and who go, wow, this is an incredible amount of control that I as a player have. I can get almost anything done that I want to do and have it be okay. Sort of. I shall respect this power. I'm not going to abuse it. And then they kind of play nice with it. And they kind of try to get along.
It sounds like the game system has so what have you written it for setting wise? But it sounds to me like you could go anywhere from cyberpunk to D&D to,
Hmm.
pretty much anywhere
Oh
with
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. No, I have two. I'm broadcasting two games when I'm able to. One of them's route. One of them is actually run out of the fourth edition Eberron campaign guide.
Okay.
I'm running an Eberron game in Crescendo. It's great. The other one is a weird science fantasy setting, my homebrew setting, but like you could totally sit down. Really, all you need is you need item lists. You just need item lists and a basic idea of skills, which anyone, I mean, just go to your Shadowrun book and be like, well, we're using the Shadowrun items and nothing else from Shadowrun. Like,
I love that
which
game. That was one of my favorites.
it's a, it is something. It really, it's. I've never gotten to play it, but every time I've read it, I'm like, wow, this is so cool. And then there's people I know who are like, don't do it. I'm like, well, it looks cool. It just looks.
Interesting story about that game. When Johnny Mnemonic came out, I went to see that movie in the theater, sight unseen. I didn't have any clue. I'd never seen a preview for it. I was just like, oh, it's Keanu Reeves. We'll go watch it.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then I sat down in the movie, and 5 minutes into the movie, I'm like, these guys are getting sued. These guys are going to get so sued. This is Shadowrun. These guys are going to get sued. Everything about this movie, it's this. And then they start rolling the credits at the end. Yeah, I'm like, then they start rolling the credits at the end, and I see like Shadowrun based on Shadowrun, blah blah blah. So I'm like, all right, but yeah, it was great. I didn't have any clue.
Right. No, you could totally do that here. The actual like wound rules and whatever are like the actual like rule chassis is relatively light, so it wouldn't take that much to like port it over. You'd probably stumble a few times and be like, that was actually supposed to inflict level 3 harm instead of level 1. Stuff like that. But yeah, no, you could totally do it. And actually at the back of the core book, I've got like 6 different sets of lists. So there's your medieval stuff, there's Bronze Age, there's hard sci-fi, whatever the heck that means. There's there's a Western thing that I threw together really quick. And the inference that I'm hoping people pick up on, although given it's an ash can, I could go change it, is that, the Weaver could just sit down and be like, okay, we have the following item lists, and I've got kind of an idea of how all these things are equivalent to each other. So I'm just going to construct my own setting using the items and the skills. It wouldn't take them a lot. It wouldn't take a lot of work.
Sounds like a lot of fun and a game that I would play. Absolutely. So we can check it out. You've got it published somewhere, right?
Yeah. I dropped links to you guys in the Discord. There's a quick start, and then there's the ash can. The quick start is free. Quick start will always be free. It'll get you. I mean, really, technically, you could just pick up the quick start, and not that I want you to not give me money, but you could, in theory, grab the quick start and kind of reverse engineer the math and be like, oh, that's how we made these characters. It wouldn't take that much to figure it out. And then you could like run it for up to 3 people. And then if you like that, if people are watching this, if they like that, and once you've run it and once you know, hey, this is actually kind of cool, I want to do this, the ash can's $5. Whenever I move into a full thing, whenever that is, however that works, I'll just update the ash can. So you'll just get the full on PDF for $5, which is these days a
That's
steal.
a deal. Yeah.
You just have to
let me
sit
just
there.
That's really
double
good.
check here. You sent me those links. You dropped those into the group chat that you, me, and Jack are in, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The links that you sent me, that's in the group chat that you, me, and Jack are in, right?
Yeah, the one where I think Jack dropped us in together.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so give me it just somewhere in like the general on our Discord for this channel. That
Yeah.
could you drop those links there so that our production guy can copy paste them, and that way we can
Sure.
get them
Yeah.
into the YouTube because we
Yeah,
haven't
absolutely.
done a whole lot of that.
I'll do that
So
after the
you'll be our
call.
first.
Yeah, well, the whatever this is. No, absolutely, and I really appreciate that because I mean, like, I don't. The game has a very weird kind of a pitch, because it plays between 1 and 3 players with your Weaver, so it's a small group, and most games don't go over 2 hours with 3 people.
It really kind of sounds like it's expandable to a live action scenario too. I mean, I without looking at
Oh,
it
with a
just from what
LARP?
you've been
Oh
telling
man, I
me.
never even thought of that. I have no idea.
I'm
I
sorry,
never even considered.
I did a ton of live action back in the day, and I was really hooked on it because of the theater and the actual acting
Yeah,
part,
yeah.
and so and the thing that made that work for me was the simplicity of the game system, and
Mhm.
and this sounds like it would be very adaptable to that kind of a scenario.
I've never LARPed in my entire life. I have never done it. I have no, like, I'm one of those people, if I haven't done something, I know not to talk about it. I've never touched LARPing. I don't have an opinion. Um, so, yeah, no, I mean, it very well may. It very well may. I don't suggest going beyond the player limit of 3. Maybe you can do 4 because there's a lot of different moving parts going on, and the players actually have a lot to do. And the Weaver will the plates that the Weaver is balancing with the players are actually a little bit more involved. Like, the player's job is harder, and in a weird way, so's the Weaver's, because like he's got all of these things that he's got to keep in mind. And if you go above 4 players with that game, I promise you it won't go well. It just won't. There's too much going on. The Weaver can't focus enough. The players can't focus, and like it's too intensive. So
Okay,
it's not good as a large group game. It simply won't work. Um, Works great as a small group game too, though. 1v1, one player, perfect. It works so well as on one. It's great.
What's the name
well,
mean? Where'd you come up with the name?
Ah, sorry, I'm laughing because so much of my stories of developing this game are me not knowing what I'm doing at all, and then someone else just being like, "That's perfect." I'm like, "It is? Okay, it's perfect. All right, let's do it." Um, So I went through like a half dozen names. I can't remember them. They were all terrible, all of them, every single one. Um, and I was talking to a friend of mine who was playing the game, who was helping me play test it, and I was complaining to her. I was actually complaining really bitterly about it because I couldn't, because like I hated the names that I come up with. I suppose if I wanted to, I could sit down and find the very first draft and just break my brain from whatever it was. But I was describing what the game was and what I wanted it to do, and I wanted it to build and change, and like I wanted the game to feel different as you played it. And if you think I talk a lot here, you get me on a phone in private. It's 45 minutes and no one has said a word. I talk a long time. And at the end of the 45 minutes, she goes, "So a crescendo."
hey,
It's like
sometimes that's the way it is.
it was so anticlimactic. Like, I'm pouring my heart and my soul out. And you're like, I can't figure this out. She goes, "Crescendo."
But that sometimes that's the way brainstorming works. I mean, you put it all out there, and then whatever it's something simple, something that seems simple. We did that for our show. We had a list of about 45 names for this show
Oh,
before we went.
oh
You know what?
no,
This is
Yeah.
the easiest one.
oh, no.
We were scratching names off the list like every day and adding new names to it, and finally we were
I
just
was
like,
adding, yeah, I was adding like 15 names per day.
Oh, that's hell. Oh no,
and then we
no.
said, you know what? Let's just make it simple.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep,
we thought
yep.
simple would be more easy.
I mean, yeah, that's ultimately what a lot of it came down. What I find that that's what a lot of it comes down to a lot of the time. It's just the simple thing. You just do
Yeah,
the simple thing. And it was very strange developing the game because like originally it was a super crunchy, like super detailed, super meticulous game. I was running it up to 3 times a week for about 2 years. You know, I was the only one running it, but I was running it with a lot of, was running it with very different people. Um, I had everything from power gaming munchkins to high narrative, artsy fartsy narration style role players. I had everybody in there. I even managed to grab a couple of classic gamers from like, from who swear by AD&D, I was grabbing people adjacent to the Bro SR and putting them through the game. Like if you look through my playtest list, there are a couple of names where if you look at them, you go, "Wait, he touched this?" It's like, yes, I wanted to make sure. Um, and just as I kept playing, different people would have different issues with the game, and I would sit there and go, well, I guess it's not that important that that exists, and I just knock it out. I just
yeah,
just kept doing it until we have the game that we have. I was knocking things out left and right for a while. Whole concepts just vanished overnight, literally overnight. I would run a game, rewrite the section, come in the next day for another play test at another table. They had read the draft that I had, God bless them, they had written the crappy draft that I had written before the previous night. And I come in, I'm like, here's a new 100 pages. And everyone's like, what?
uh-oh. Oh, no, we're good.
So yeah, most of it was people telling me to slow down and stop changing things so quickly. I did not succeed.
Yeah, well, you know how that goes. I know how that can be for sure. I've been
It's
there.
it's yeah, no, it was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah,
Um it was terrifying. It was pretty scary actually because
I'll
it's
tell you,
like
I give anybody who's willing to take this hobby to the next level really credit because I love running games. I've run games, world development, all that stuff. Uh, Within the game systems that I've played, that's all been fun. I've never really taken it past that to game development, and that's a whole other skill set and section of this hobby that you know the people try and get into, but to succeed at it and put something good together, that's that's there's not very many people out there that have done it.
Yeah, that
well,
takes a lot of determination, a lot of skill.
or just you just keep running your head into the wall.
Yeah, that would be my method.
That was mine. That was definitely mine. It it was either, I mean, what it came down to for me, I didn't want to design a new game because I'd actually started working in playtesting with like gaming companies. And one of the guys that I was working for in playtesting stuff or was like, well, why don't you design? Very you have very well developed, you have very well put together opinions on things. You should design. I'm like, what would I design? Like, everybody's got these really cool ideas. Why would I do one? There's all this really cool stuff out there. Why would I add to it? And it wasn't until I came up with it wasn't until I realized that I needed to keep that nothing existed to tell the kind of story that Gene Wolfe's stuff did, that I went, okay, now I have to, because there's literally nothing else like this out there. Nothing else does this. And at that point, I felt I had to do it. And that's it. Like, it really is that simple a thing. I mean, if you don't want to do it, for the love of God, don't do it. It'll sap your sanity. But it's been a good time.
Awesome. So hey, let's tell people where they can find you and how to get your stuff.
How to get my game. So I'm on Twitter. Crescendo Games 9. I can also drop you guys the link for that. I'm on Drive Through RPG. If you just look up Crescendo, that actually should be rather close to the top. If you get into those spots, and if you're interested in playing the game, DM me on Twitter. I'll add you to the Discord. And at that point, you can, it's a really cool bunch of people who are very, very thoughtful and have seen every step of the madness, and for whatever reason have a runaway screaming. So, I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that. So if you want to get involved in that and see the other projects that are going on, I kind of operate in this weird, like, half in the Discord, half on Twitter sort of a deal. Yeah, that's where you'd find me. I'm kind of, going around and commenting on things and working on various projects and inflicting people with them in my Discord.
Well, I'm definitely interested in downloading the starter PDF and checking that out, man. I think of the game systems that we've talked about with people, I think yours is going to be right up at the top of the list, and I'm going to go do that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'll also drop a link for my I'll give you guys a link to my YouTube channel. There's relatively a lot. It's relatively a lot for a father of 4 who's in his late 30s. Of me actually running the game, and I kind of explain while I'm running the game what I'm doing and what I'm trying to look for as far as being a weaver is concerned. So that way, if anyone's reading the book and they're like, what the hell is he talking about? There's plenty, like, there's stuff on there. I mean, there's plenty of material. So if people want to reach out and ask questions, I'd love to answer them.
All right. Yep. Send us the list of links. After we wrap this up, we'll make sure we get them in the YouTube and on the description there, because we haven't been doing a whole lot of that. We've just figured out how to do that. So I'm excited to start putting the links in the descriptions. So check out Spider and Crescendo Games, man. And hey, man, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was great. You guys are great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's
great.
Nice.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you, man. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
nice origin story, and I hope that helps out other Christian kids to play D&D.
Yeah, just keep your parents away from cult and little fears, and
it was such a weird vibe in the house too. Sorry, I know I'm supposed, but like when I walked in, the house felt wrong, and I'm like, what? Where am I? What's going on here? And like everybody seemed normal, right? But the house felt so wrong. I'm like, what am I doing here? And then I
So
found out.
I do got a couple end of show announcements I got to make. We've got Winter Field Day coming up for the radio club here in Ashtabula. I'm an amateur radio operator. We do emergency training drills every year, twice a year. We call them Field Day. We go out do. Our place is a little bit remote. It's indoor, but then we set up and practice field operations, and we're doing that the 24th and 25th of this month. We'll be at 3600 Stanhope Kelloggsville Road. Check us out. Listen for KC8OH on the air for anybody else who's checking out the show that isn't just RPGer like me. And hey, one other thing, since I'm sure some of your folks will be checking us out too, we've got a giveaway when we hit 100 subscribers, and we get a couple hundred views depending on the video. We're not doing great, but we're doing pretty good. But when we do hit 100 subscribers, somebody's going to win this beautiful coffee mug. Oh, here, I'll make it so you can see it. There's a beautiful coffee mug, limited edition. No more of these coffee mugs in existence. And that same person's also going to win. Let me put the coffee mug back up here. Don't drop the coffee mug, right? And they're going to win this awesome T-shirt. I'm holding it the wrong way. This is a official Captain's Comics T-shirt. Can you see it there? Hey, there you go. And
hey, that's a pretty cool place.
Whoever,
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, and so our 100 subscribers is going to win that. They'll get the shirt in whatever color, whatever size they need, and whatever color writing they want on it. And this shirt has held up pretty well because we've crumpled it up like into a little ball every episode. And look, like you see that the stickers are still. It's not a sticker. The screen printing is perfect on it still. So hey, that's what we've got going on. But hey, Spider, thank you again, man, for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
So everyone, like and subscribe, leave a comment. Check out Crescendo.
Check out Crescendo.
The drive-in,
and our website, Ashtabula Hobby Talk.
Was that drive-in game?
The
Drive-through
RPG.
Drive-through RPG. Check out that game and keep in touch and follow us on Ashtabula Hobby Talk.
Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks, guys, so much. Appreciate it.
Hobby on. Hobby on.